Hello, and welcome to The Horse Show with me, Chris Stafford. This is Season 7, Episode 1. And this is the podcast where I get to talk to riders and trainers from across the horse world. And my guest on this new season of The Horse Show is amateur eventer Courtenay Tuxhorn. Courtney is originally from Harwood in Maryland, and she grew up working and riding on a family friend's thoroughbred farm, galloping racehorses and dabbling in the hunters and jumpers. But that all changed when she graduated college, and the reality of an entry-level job in a big city lured her out of the saddle and in search of new sports. That's when she took up cycling and triathlon and raced professionally with some of the best women in the world. Some of her career highlights include overall female wins at the 2013 American Discovery Trail Marathon in Colorado, the 2009 Danskin Seattle Triathlon, and the 2010 Maryland Half Marathon. She also represented the US at the ITU Duathlon World Championships in 2011, and she's been on the podium at numerous bike races across California. But after a dozen years or so of racing, Courtney decided it was time to get back to horses. She took stock of the modern sport horse landscape to see where her favourite breed, which is the thoroughbred, excels, and decided to pursue eventing. In early 2017, she found a racehorse ready for his second career at Laurel Park Racetrack in Maryland, and the two of them began learning the sport together. Courtney and BA Messenger, or BAM as she calls him in the barn, completed their first FEI event in 2021, and that was the CCI 2-Star Long at the Tryon International. For the past 8 years, Courtney's work has been in climate advocacy, but she's taken that on the road while she trains in Ocala, Florida with Jonathan Hollins, with a plan to start her season in Ocala and make her way back to Tryon. And she has her sights set on going back home to Maryland for the CCI 3-Star later this year. I caught up with Courtney in Ocala to hear about how her passion for horses has come full circle. Hi, Courtney. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I saw what you've been doing, crossing sports, crossing platforms, crossing disciplines, and I had to have you on the show. You know, we've been doing this show for a long time now, and I love, because we cover all sports on With Sports anyway, I love it when I find an athlete who has had a go at a few sports. And so I'm curious to tell your story, because it sounds like you are a horsewoman through and through. That's in your bones, and that's why you came back to it.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's true. I had a little bit of a detour along the way.
But is it in your family, Courtney? Did your parents any involvement there?
It is, and for a few generations, actually. My mom was a rider and still is. That's something we share. And my grandfather, who was her father, and then his grandmother. My mom's grandmother, my great-grandmother, I actually had her stock pin, which I proudly wore at all of my events until I lost it in the show jumping at Red Hills horse trials last.
Oh, no.
I know. But it's a part of Red Hills now, and it was one of my favorite events last year, so I just kind of think of it with honor. But yes, I have several generations of horse people in my family, so I'm really fortunate in that way.
And what did they do?
My mom mostly rode thoroughbreds. My mom showed a lot as a child. She showed ponies, and she's very unstructured. It's kind of funny, as an adult, she has some retired thoroughbreds now, and a horse that she used to use for riding. And she did great when she had a friend that would take her riding. But when her friend moved out of the country, and my mom was on her own, she's like, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what I should do? I'm like, well, you have one day of going and walking, and then another day you work on circles. So it's very unstructured, just sort of enjoying riding. And I think same with my grandfather. My great grandmother showed, and, I think we have stories of her showing in Madison Square Garden, ages and ages ago. But I think I'm the most sort of structured of anybody, at least in terms of competition.
Well, that's quite something, that you've got that kind of heritage, but clearly it is in your genes, and you had a good start by the look of things. You grew up riding racehorses, so thoroughbreds were always a passion then. It's not surprising that you have an off-the-track thoroughbred now.
It's true. No, I love thoroughbreds. One of a good family friend from where I grew up in Maryland, they have a big thoroughbred farm, Larking Hill. And actually, when I was 8, she had somebody drop, Christy Claggett is the woman who owns the property. Somebody apparently dropped a pony off at this racehorse farm. And so I was only 8, and she asked my mom if I wanted to come and ride a pony. And so in exchange for riding this pony, Strawberry, I had to work at the racehorse barn, which I took it very seriously. But as an adult, I realized Christy was very generously babysitting for me, because I basically, with a bunch of 3-year-old racehorses, I would go and fill the water buckets. Eventually, I graduated to be able to hot walk the very calm ones. But, I did that for years, grew out of Strawberry and rode some other horses there, and eventually started galloping the horses there and learned a lot. I never did pony club, but I feel like that was my version of pony club, and also gave me a great love for the thoroughbreds.
So did you have your own horses at that time then, Courtney, or were you always riding other people's?
Mostly other people's. I had one, my mom got me an off-the-track thoroughbred when I was 12. She got injured soon. I rode her for a few years, and she got injured, in a fox hunting accident, hurt her stifle. And then, we bred her, and but by then I wasn't as involved. Anyway, we don't have to talk too much about Sujui. So I technically had my own horse, but she wasn't too much in the picture. I mostly was riding other people's. And especially when I went off to college, I went to the University of Virginia and rode at the barracks there, which is a show hunter facility for the most part. And it was always, we have amazing school horses there. So I was riding them.
So you kept that passion going then while you were in school?
For sure. I took a year off between high school and college, thinking, I just wanted to take a gap year. And I went and worked at some plant physiologist labs in the UK and in Australia, and wasn't able to ride much during that time. And so that made me realize I can't go to a school where I can't ride. I'm going to go crazy. So that's why I decided to go to the University of Virginia, because Charlottesville is amazing horse country.
It sure is. I apologize that you weren't able to find the riding in England, of all places.
I know. Well, I was at I was working 9 to 5 at a lab at the University of Essex in Colchester. So I don't know how familiar you are with the area, but I wasn't quite able to get out of the city and go and ride. I wish I could have, but I wasn't able to.
Yeah, Essex isn't everything to the horse world. There's more elsewhere. Did you actually go eventing? Did you go to Babington or Burley and follow any events while you were there?
No, I was there in the I guess I probably could have been there for Burley because I got there probably mid-September. But no, I wouldn't. It's amazing to me. I think if I'd found eventing when I was younger, I wouldn't have taken a long break from riding. But I almost did find eventing. I don't know if you're familiar with Stuart Pittman, who started the Retired Racehorse Project, but he's a family friend.
Absolutely. I
remember he took me cross-country schooling at, I think we went to like Fair Hill or something. This was back in the 90s, and it wasn't my horse. And, he took me cross-country schooling one time, and I thought, like, this is so much fun, but, I never did anything with it. So no, I didn't really get the eventing bug until after I retired from triathlon, and I just, I wanted to get back into riding, and I wanted a thoroughbred. And so I just kind of took stock of, where thoroughbreds excel. And it sure wasn't the show hunters anymore like it was when I was growing up. So that's kind of why it was sort of more calculated, that I thought, okay, well, thoroughbreds are good at eventing, so I'll try eventing, and maybe I'll be good at it since I can do triathlons. Yeah, so when I was in the UK, I definitely it was not on my radar to look up Badminton or Burley. I wish it had been.
Well, I'm glad we lured you back, but I do want to talk about the interim years, Courtney, when you did take off and do some triathlon and some marathon running, some duathlon. You took that quite seriously. You picked it up, the running you picked up. It seems, you had a natural flair for running. Now, always when I talk to triathletes, I hear there's always one discipline, one of those phases that they are not so good at. Often it's swimming. Now, with you, when you took up triathlon, where were your strengths and weaknesses?
My strength when I took up triathlon was definitely cycling, because I started triathlon after I'd been a bike racer for a few years. And I always loved running, and I thought swimming would be easy. And at the time I was 29, so I'd been bike racing for 4 or 5 years. I started in my mid-20s. And
how did that come about? Tell us how you got into the race and the bike racing first.
So the bike racing is kind of funny. I think I first realized I was an athlete at probably partway through college when I started running for fitness in Charlottesville. And I decided I wanted to run the Charlottesville 10 miler, which is this spring 10-mile race that they have there that's kind of high profile. And so I went out and had just been training for it. And somehow the assistant coach of the cross country team had seen me running and wanted me to walk on to the UVA cross country team based on watching me train for this 10 miler. But what he didn't see is that I didn't know how to train, and I basically would go out and run as fast as I could every training run. So I gotten multiple stress fractures in the bottoms of my heels by the time I finished the 10 miler, where I won my age group and finished 6th overall female, even though I started halfway back because I was so intimidated by all these fancy looking runners. So I feel like that was sort of the peak of my running career at that age. And then I kind of had to set it aside, which is how I found cycling. I moved to San Francisco and wanted to get a bike to get around because I couldn't afford a car. And meanwhile, I was working at a law office, and part of my job was coordinating with all of the bike messengers that were, taking documents down to file at the courthouse and so on. So they became my first friends in the city and encouraged me to sort of take up cycling with them. And so I did, and I had done some training rides. I found there's an AIDS life cycle, like charity ride that goes from San Francisco down to Los Angeles. I don't know if they still do it, but at the time it was something that happened annually, a fundraising ride. And they would do all of these training loops around the city for people that were planning on doing the proper ride. So I joined those groups because it was a great way to learn, where to ride around the city. But I was so competitive that eventually they were so nice. These people that are training for a charity ride, finally somebody said, you should try racing, after I kept racing people up the hills. And they're like, we're just here for fun. You keep trying to race us up these hills. So I thought, okay, I guess I'll try to figure out how to join a racing team. So I found, a local racing team, and the bike racing scene in California is amazing. There's so many local races out, you have to go out to like Fresno and the Central Valley and areas. Some of them are kind of a far drive, but just beautiful terrain and there was a great local race promoter that put on a bunch of local races. You could race from pretty much February to through September. So that's how I found bike racing, and started a women's team with some friends. And we had we were mostly category 2, a couple category 1 racers. I don't know how familiar you are with the category system, but you kind of move up the levels. And I think the main reason why I found triathlon from cycling is I think because we had a small women's team, and it was tempting. Like, we just went out and did all the races. Larger women's teams would go out and do, you'd have a team that would go do the criteriums, and a team that would be, ready for the early season races. And then another part of the team that would be ready for the late season races. And they'd all kind of stagger things out. But we had a 5-person team, so everybody went to all the races. So that was an easy way to sort of get overtrained. But then the other thing that happened in cycling at the time is that, you'd show up for these women's races where there'd be a $5,000 purse. And meanwhile, later in the day, there'd be the men racing for a $100,000 purse. And you'd hear spectators say that the women's race isn't as exciting. And you're kind of like, well, I'm not going to put my neck on the line for $50. Like, I'm just here having fun. Like, sure, I'm going to go for it. But of course, it's not as exciting as the $100,000 men's race. Right. So that kind of made me peek my head up and look around. And at the time in triathlon, the prize purses were equal across men and women, which I thought was really appealing. And I thought it'd be easy to learn to swim. So off I went.
Oh, so you actually had to learn to swim, did you?
I mean, I could play in a backyard pool without drowning, but I didn't know how to swim laps at all. I didn't know how to swim freestyle. So yeah, I had to learn how to swim. It was harder than I thought it was going to be.
Did you get a coach?
I did. I had, at the time I was dating a guy who was a pro triathlete. He said lots of encouraging things like, you're pretty fit. I thought you'd be able to make it from one end of the pool to the other. And then, so eventually I hired an actual, I went to an actual swimming specialist who, it's such a skill-based sport. So drills can make a really big difference. Just little things like learning to how you move your hand in the water and how you do your pull through and this kind of thing. So, and getting videos under the water. So yeah, I had help here and there. The best part for my swimming actually was when I moved to Colorado a couple years after I started racing triathlons. I moved to Colorado for graduate school, and in Boulder, there's just it's such a great town to live in if you do any kind of endurance sport, especially triathlon. Yeah, running, you name it. So yeah, I got lots of great help in Colorado from coaches, just going to masters swimming practices and just get a couple people that world champions, Ironman champions, so on, that would help with my stroke, and that helped a bunch.
I know Siri Lindley and Beck Keats are based there, right?
They're into horses now, but yes, they are.
And they're very much into horses. Yeah, they rescue. Yeah. Oh, you didn't train with Sarah? No, she's a great coach. But yeah, they do have a wonderful rescue organization there. But yeah, so I knew Colorado was a pretty good place to be if you were into triathlon. It sounds like those three phases came together then quite easily for you. If you've got the cycling down, you got the running down, and then the swimming came along. But how was it? It's one thing to learn to swim and learn to do laps and all of that aspect of it. But how about swimming in open water? How was that?
It was tough. I think every triathlete sort of picks races a bit strategically. The strong swimmers like a race with warmer water where people don't wear wetsuits and maybe there's a bit of a current, or it's an ocean swim. I did a few races with ocean swims, but I had to be a little strategic. I like the cooler river with a current type of races, but, and I did better at the half Ironman distance where the swim is relatively shorter portion of the distance than at the Olympic. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And that's one reason why I felt incentivized to get my pro license sooner rather than later, which was sort of a blessing and a curse, but it meant, I had less messy starts. I wasn't getting pummeled by 200 other athletes in the starts, because the pro race is, between 15 and 30 or something like that, depending. But at the same time, I would more often be swimming by myself because I was often one of the slowest people. Sometimes I'd be not last out of the water, with a couple of other girls who weren't strong swimmers. But a lot of times I was swimming by myself, which is a little slower because you have a nice draft and swim if you're a strong swimmer with other people.
Right. So you did quite a few races. You had some success there. What would you say would be your career highlights then from triathlon and marathon and cycling and the duathlon that you did?
Well, the duathlon, I went to the World Championships in Gijón, Spain back in, this was, I think, 2011. That was pretty exciting. But I think it's funny, right now, I would say in terms of triathlon, my actual career highlight is something that happened after I retired, when I flew to South Africa in December of 2017 to give the speech at a wedding of two good friends, Dan Hugo, and then the bride is your 2020 Tokyo Olympic triathlon gold medalist, Flora Duffy. So I think that's probably my proudest accomplishment in triathlon.
Yeah, that'd be nice. You never shared a race with her, did you?
No, I wasn't strong enough to be doing ITU races, but we trained together and we were good friends. But yeah, in terms of my actual my own race results, I had a lot of great, I think I had a lot of triathlons that were a lot of fun. But, I was sort of a mid-pack pro at the national level. So, lots of top 10s, which were really gratifying. And, you take home a prize check. I think probably my favorite race result myself was when I won my first marathon that I did. I went out and ran a marathon in Colorado Springs, just wanting to do it in preparation for I wanted to do a 50K and try to do more endurance, like longer distance trail running. And yeah, I went out and won it, which was awesome. I ran a 3:07, which I was pretty proud of. Thank you.
So what was it? What was the time?
It was a 3:07, it's 6,000 feet on, soft surfaces. So I was pretty proud of that. And it got me a Boston qualifying spot. So I went to Boston the following year, which was 2014. And I'd hoped to do more marathons, but I had some physical issues which sort of pushed me out of triathlon, and then out of running as well. I have a structural leg length discrepancy, which took a long time to figure out. I thought I just kept having a lot of back pain, and it would happen mostly on the bike. And it got to the point in triathlons where first would be the last half an hour of the bike, and then be, half of the bike. And then finally it was like, okay, 45 minutes into a 2.5 hour bike, my back started hurting. But it turned out to be issues in my hip. I had like a labral tear and a bunch of other damage. But it didn't hurt running, but then eventually it did start to hurt running. So that's kind of why I stopped my racing career, even though I felt like my results started to get better because, I got better at swimming and got more efficient at everything. But
how is the hip now then with riding, Courtney?
It's pretty good. I had a few different surgeries. I laugh when I've spent time in Canada and tell people I've had 7 hip surgeries. They can't believe it. But in America, you can get a good number of hip surgeries to try to get something solved orthopedically. But yeah, it's my right side's a little bit weaker. I have to think about my right leg, putting my right leg on more than I have to do my left leg. But I feel like I take a lot of inspiration from people like Boyd Martin, who I've seen walk around a cross country course, and he looks like his hip hurts probably worse than mine.
Going back to then your biggest takeaway from having done all those sports, because eventing, as we often say, is the triathlon of the horse world. What were your biggest takeaways from the endurance sports that you did, the training, the nutrition, and that is now maybe helping you with your riding career again?
Oh, I think all of it. I feel like it was just such an invaluable experience. So much, I think some of the commonalities are, in triathlon, people don't like to take time to recover. And I see the same thing. I think it's really important in the horse world, or with my horse, and training my horse to give him, be really cognizant of recovery time and how just the physiology works after a hard workout or during a hard workout, that kind of thing. So I think it's been, I have sort of, it's easy, but not easy, but, I've taken lots of lessons of how to build a fitness plan, and how to just kind of be aware of that. And then I also think I have a lot of body awareness, after learning to swim. And then after I stopped triathlon, I also took up rock climbing, which I haven't been able to do as much of since COVID started. But, that's another sport where body awareness is so crucial. And I think it really helps, especially since I only have one horse. So I'm trying to be really focused in every single ride about just the sort of micro movements that my body's making and observing how they sort of manifest and how the horse is going. So, and yeah, in terms of nutrition, I've learned a lot. Like I learned so much over my racing career about nutrition that it almost feels innate. Just kind of thinking about, balances of micro and macronutrients and sugars. And I can't think of anything sort of specific. It feels like that's kind of just part of my nature, whether it's feeding myself or being aware of my horse's diet. So I've had, and I think mental toughness is also something that I cultivated a lot of during my racing. Whether it's sort of thinking about like whether or not I'm not the type that's like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this workout today. I guess I couldn't be, otherwise I wouldn't have been doing so much training and racing for so many years. But I think that mental aspect of, being aware of the overall goal, but also enjoying the sort of process along the way is something that I definitely cultivated while I was training for my own sports. I could go on. I mean, I could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah, no, I love this because, I'm thinking, of the discipline that you obviously need to do triathlon, the routine, that discipline, that mindset, that's going to help you in any sport, I would imagine. You mentioned there the rock climbing. I'd imagine too that would be terrific for your core strength and help you with your riding. But you're in Ocala, Florida for the winter training with Jonathan Holling. No, I can't imagine there's too many rock climbing opportunities in Ocala, Florida?
No, there aren't. So there is a gym. There's a climbing gym up in Gainesville that I keep wanting to go check out, but I haven't been up there. I've been instead doing lots of yoga. Last winter I'd been running, but I think, I think I need to just realize that running is part of my illustrious past. But yoga's been fun. Climbing, one thing that I think is really great about climbing that really also transfers well to riding is that you have to really execute. And similar to like in the moment, going around your course, whether it's show jumping, cross country, dressage, you just have this finite amount of time to execute and have that mental plan of how you're going to do it. So that's one thing I also, in addition to the strength side of things, I miss that, needing to perform on a short route and execute the plan. But yeah, there aren't really that many opportunities here to rock climb.
It sounds like you love to try your hand at different sports, though. So I'm wondering, as an amateur eventer, and I know you have a job as well, but are there other sports that you're thinking of you might try at some point, Courtney?
That's a great question. I feel like no. I mean, I feel like every sport that I've tried has been one that I've thought like maybe I'll like this as much as I like riding. And that didn't happen. I loved running. I loved cycling, loved triathlon. I love climbing, and I loved my yoga practice too, but not the way that I love riding. I used to always plan my training routes past places that I knew had horses. But I don't have to do that when my training is with my own horse. I'm there already.
So now, as I mentioned, and if you don't mind me saying, you're in your mid-40s. As an amateur, you've come back to the sport that you going back to the horse world and doing a sport that you obviously love now with your off-the-track thoroughbred, and you've got into FEI events. So I'm wondering now, because you've kind of fast-tracked, you've gone from right up from training to an FEI event over a couple of years, or over a year, less than a year, obviously. But now we're into 2022. You're down there in Ocala. What are the plans next? What are your ambitions? Well, for this year, I think my ambition when I first got this horse was always that I wanted a nice horse, and I wanted to make the nice horse myself. I'm getting emotional. Sorry, let me take a breath. So in a way, I've achieved that, because he's lovely and we have so much fun together. But being in the thick of it, in all the competition, I'm a competitive person, obviously, and so thinking about what does it mean to do my best in this sport and do as best as I can. It means continuing to sort of pursue the FEI route. So this past fall, I went and volunteered at the Maryland 5-star and saw some of the 3-star class as well as the 5-star. And so my dream of dreams for this year would be to do the 3-star long at Maryland. And Maryland's where I'm from, so I could have friends and family that could come and watch. So that would be fun. That's my goal for this year, is to qualify for that 3-star long and get my horse fit and ready for that. And so I've kind of built my season around that. Like we did Tryon this past year, so which was in mid-November. So I haven't gotten him out yet. So far this winter, we're going to compete in the preliminary one day in a couple of weeks at Ocala, and then the 2-star short at Red Hills, and then try for intermediate and I think I need to do a couple of intermediates and a couple of 3-star shorts, and that's would qualify us for the 3-star long. So that's my hope for this year, and we'll see how it goes. But my horse is a lovely, talented horse. His jockey might hold him back sometimes, but I think I learn fast. So. So obviously you're going to continue in that route with him, but have you thought about getting another horse and then what it looks like beyond that? I mean, or do you want to get into coaching, or finding these free off the track thoroughbreds and flipping them?
That's a great question. I haven't thought too far ahead about that. I live so much in the moment. And so that's my main, I've really been thinking on that side of things, is just what's happening, kind of what's my next step right in front of me with my overall goal with my one horse, which, I have him, and I have that I sort of have my routine and plans kind of, and what is within reason for me kind of all sorted out. In terms of having another horse or moving out of my current profession, I'm not sure. It'd be lovely to have another horse. I hate to say this, but I think the time that I would be able to do that is if my horse were to get hurt, which happens, and it's funny, actually. I was going to say, I think about whenever I'm worried about him getting hurt, I think about all my triathlete friends who have gone on to achieve great things, or myself, and think about, every athlete gets hurt, every athlete has a niggle, it's going to be fine. But yeah, coaching, I don't know if I'd be that good of a coach. I think I'm an okay rider, but I'm not sure I could. I don't know if I could. I can help people with fitness plans. I feel confident in doing that, but I don't know if I'm doing a great job of selling myself right now, but that's not necessarily what I'm in it for,
Okay. But you have a full-time job, you were telling me.
I do.
That's in the world of climate, which is very topical, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So yeah, my full-time job feels very full-time. I work in climate advocacy, and my horse is, in a lot of ways, my sort of mental health, because I've been working in climate advocacy. I've been working at my job for a little over 8 years. And, the climate movement's come a long way since then, but not far enough. And so, yeah, I could talk about that more if you want to talk about the state of climate advocacy and climate change and climate policy, but I don't know if we want to get into it.
Yeah, that's a big topic, isn't it? For sure. So you're pretty busy then, one way or the other. Now, how long will you stay in Ocala before you break north again?
I think I'll probably stay, if all goes well, I'll probably stay until mid-May, and then go to do a 3 short at Tryon. They got the Jersey Fresh dates that used to be in mid-May up in New Jersey, right. And now I'll be in North Carolina. So I'm hoping to head there for a 3-star short. And then I'll go north back to Maryland to my mom's, and with the hopes of getting ready for competing at Fair Hill at the end of the year, or in October, I guess.
And meanwhile, your husband, what's his name? Kimley Tuxhorn. He's north of the border. He's in the frozen north in Calgary. So you're having to deal with that and the pandemic. It's not an easy time, is it, to be moving your own career around the country to get the most out of that and, balance life in this pandemic era?
No, it's not. He's a professor at the University of Calgary, and he's actually starting his sabbatical in April. So that'll be a nice relief, because we haven't gotten to spend that much time together. But which in some ways feels a little unfair, because I did get the horse after we got married. But so I don't know how much of this he knew he was signing up for, but I don't know if you knew this. I did have last year, I did a training level at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year we did an FEI. But after the first year I had my horse, I'd done a few training. I'd done 4 trainings and was, on paper qualified to run a preliminary level event. So in 2019, I signed up for a local event in Cochrane, Alberta, just outside of Calgary, the preliminary level. And it was dumping rain, and my usual coach wasn't there. So I had somebody else helping me, and, I grossly underestimated the size of studs that I should be putting in my horse's shoes, and, went out anyway thinking, like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but surely if this was a bad idea, somebody would say so. Anyway, I crashed my horse through a fence. It took us about a year to recover from that, and mostly mentally for me, and also physically for him. And so after that experience, I'm a little bit less willing to compromise, I would say, on what I think that I need to do to take care of him, which my husband, I'm not sure. I should probably have the same attitude towards, I don't want to compromise on my relationship with my husband, but at the same time, I feel like he's an adult man. I think he can intellectually understand this and emotionally support this passion of mine. But yeah, that's also part of the reason why I want to provide the absolute best for my horses and my own safety as I can. And to me, that means, being in the United States and trying to campaign him down here.
Yeah, well, this is where it happens, that's for sure, in the sport of eventing. So what would you say are the three things, say, that you most value from being a sportswoman and having done all the sports that you do?
Well, I think I've had an interesting life and a lot of experience that I think, which isn't something I sit and think about all the time, like, oh, I'm so interesting. But when I talk to other people, I'm aware that how fortunate I am to have just experienced and seen and done a lot of different things. And I think that it gives me so that's one thing. And then second is I think I have a sort of well-roundedness and ability to pick up from different experiences that I've had in my life that sort of helps me, advance, or not advance, but like helps me sort of feel fulfilled in whatever I'm doing kind of currently. Like I had an amazing ride this morning, just hacking around, and it was, 30 degrees when I started, and we hacked for 30 minutes. And then I did just a short flat work session where I felt like, I was able to use my right leg in a way that I, felt more natural than I had in the past. Just these little things. I don't know. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but that's the sort of.
Yeah, but it's those little things that. I'm just thinking, sorry to interrupt you, but that is those little things, isn't it, that make up the big picture when it comes to training, both for athlete and for horse.
Yeah, no, it really is. And just the more little things that you pick up, it just feels like, I feel like I'm just so lucky and have just such a, just an awesome journey with this horse that I wouldn't have gotten to have. And I guess that's my third thing is like, sometimes I look around at there's lots of working students here and lots of young professionals and young professional riders and out there with the string of horses. And there's a part of me that thinks like, man, I wish I'd found eventing when I was younger. And, I could be, that much more sort of accomplished in my eventing career. But I'm really glad of the path that I took that sort of led me to this horse and experiencing this journey in this way that's so gratifying and fun and I think a little bit unique, and hopefully inspiring to other folks, other women in their 40s who want to, go find a horse and pick up eventing a little bit later in life. It's been a lot of fun.
We missed the second one. I interrupted you. The second thing that you value.
Oh, well, let's see. If I had to put it in sort of pithy terms, the second one would probably just be, that I can sort of enjoy the process and enjoy the little things and take, small victories and little things kind of accumulate up into big ones.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you have it all in perspective, Courtney, and who knows what might happen down the road with your love of horses, neither in or out of eventing. There's more that awaits you in the world of sport, horse sports and perhaps other sports too. So I want to wish you the very, very best of luck with whatever you decide to do. And thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and share your story.
Oh, well, thanks, Chris, for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been an honor.
And you'll find links to Courtney's social media on our website at wispsports.com. Don't forget you can follow us at wispsports.com on any social media channel. And you can also leave your comments and questions there and suggestions for guests. We would always love to hear from you. And if you have a moment to give us a 5-star review or a rating on your podcast app, that always helps others find us here at Wisp Sports. And do check out all our other shows here at Wisp Sports. We have one just for triathletes. That's called Try This with Dr. Kirsten Lauritsen, as well as many other shows here on the network. So until the next time, I'm Chris Stafford. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.